Hello and welcome to today's video. My name's Haley and today we are going over the gift frequency within the 6th gene key, which is called the path to peace, and the gift being diplomacy. Diplomacy. I thought I understood this word. In reading this chapter, I realized there was a lot more room for expansion within my definition of diplomacy. And so the way Richard Rudd defines diplomacy right off the bat here, he says, diplomacy is the ability to adjust your own behavior to create a harmonious exchange with others. Okay. So what gives someone the ability to adjust their behavior, which once again then creates a harmonious exchange with others? What is foundational to this ability? I thought about that and I realized you can't adjust your own behavior, your own actions, unless you have the awareness to do so. So whether that's cultivating your consciousness level through meditation or observing your own actions or flow state, whatever, there is a heightened level of consciousness that is foundational to this gift of diplomacy. He also notes here how this gift of diplomacy is a byproduct of opening your heart to another person. I've talked about this in a last video, but to me, having an open heart, once again, requires awareness. How can you be loving and present with the person right in front of you unless you're being completely aware? You have a high level of consciousness. You're there with them. Therefore, you're able to exchange and receive love. He goes on another little mini tangent. He talked about this in the shadow frequency within the 6th gene key, but how it has to do with pH level. I think I only breezed over that very quickly, but he mentions it again here. He says that this gift is deeply connected with the pH balance in your physical body. That definitely piqued my interest, and naturally the question that came up in my mind was, okay, if this has to do with the pH level of my body, meaning the more balanced I am within my pH, the more stable I am within this gift frequency of diplomacy, and vice versa, the more diplomatic I am, it correlates to the more balanced my pH level is. Okay, so how do I balance my pH level? I did a little research, but I'm going to definitely go down a rabbit hole a little bit more after this. Off the top of my head, I remember someone telling me that coffee is acidic, and I definitely used to drink too much caffeine. So off the top of my head, I thought, that makes sense. Because I do remember when I stopped drinking tons and tons and tons of coffee, I started to feel more balanced. Now, that also might be a byproduct to the fact that I wasn't fueling the stress hormone of cortisol. But nonetheless, I do think it also had to do with taking in less acidity through the coffee, therefore balancing my pH, therefore allowing me to be a little bit more diplomatic than I was when I was drinking tons of coffee. All of that to say, it could be an interesting rabbit hole to go down, Google, and look up how to balance the pH within your body, with this understanding that the more balanced my pH is, the more I can hold this frequency of diplomacy. And once again, diplomacy being the ability to adjust your behavior, the awareness and the power and the strength you need to interact with others harmoniously. It's a pretty awesome gift. So, in affecting the pH of your body and balancing the pH of your body, that directly correlates to stabilizing the emotional aura in your environment, which is a fancy way to say you'll feel more peace, more calm, more relaxed, which naturally and effortlessly leads to more presence, more heart opening, more diplomacy. See how that works? And because of this heightened awareness, you're naturally able to observe your own unconscious projections that would usually surface within conflict, right? Within the shadow state. So if I become aware of my unconscious projections, perhaps even before they leave my mouth, I have the ability and the power and the awareness to now harness them and move in a more diplomatic way, a way that's more loving for the conversation as a whole. I stop adding fuel to the fire. And I guess one thing I'll just add is, it's not like you either have this gift or you don't. I feel it's on a sliding scale, diplomacy. Once again, the more awareness you build, the more diplomatic you become, the more balanced your pH is. The less balanced your pH is, the less diplomatic you are, the lower awareness. But it keeps going. It's on a sliding scale, infinite to both directions. And something nice here to note is, okay, so let's say I have hypothetically balanced my pH. I'm acting a lot more from here. My awareness is high, therefore I'm able to be more diplomatic within conflict and conversation. I stop projecting, and right as I'm about to, my awareness comes in and I'm able to bring it back to baseline. Eventually the person I'm in argument with or in conflict with will naturally start to see their own projections, simply because I am not adding fuel to the fire. The other person is forced to come to terms with their own demons. So this resolves not only my negative energy, but also helps the other person resolve whatever energy is going on inside of them that's low vibrational. So this is really beautiful, because not only are you gifting yourself peace when you stabilize into this frequency of diplomacy, you're also offering that same gift to the other person, whether they realize it consciously or not. It's a butterfly effect. It's contagious. Diplomacy, is that how you say it? Diplomacy, whatever it is contagious. And that's awesome, because everyone gets a little sweet taste of this treat. He goes back here to the theme it mentioned within the shadow frequency of conflict, the battle of the sexes. He says, for any relationship to be healthy, there has to be a balance, right? In the past videos, we talked about how there has to be a balance of feminine and masculine energy within the relationship with yourself or another, or anything for that matter, in order for it to feel harmonious. Another way to say this is there needs to be a balance of yin and yang, of energy and calmness, of receiving and giving, of listening and expressing. And he notes here that the only reason conflict ever ensues is because balance is lost. Something's been knocked out of homeostasis, and now the conflict you feel is the imbalance. And it's coming back into balance that helps you feel aligned, safe, and relaxed. And so also another thing I thought of here is diplomacy is the ability to, when things are out of balance, use the power of your awareness, the strength of your awareness to bring it back here. Because it's easy to be here when everything's already here, right? It's easy to be loving and present and aware and conscious and diplomatic when everything's fine. It's when things are out of balance that this gift of diplomacy is really a blessing. And in my opinion, shows that you really have it when you're here and you're able to bring it back here. When you're in the heat of a conflict or argument that's building and you're still able to become aware of your emotional state and choose to harness it in a way that's the most loving for you and the other people's involved. The ability to bring all back into balance. He says it here that this gift has the effect of instantly applying the required amount of give and take a feminine and masculine, yin and yang, however you want to call it, in order to maintain peacefulness. So the sixth gift instantly is able to sense this imbalance and bring it back here. And again, the faster you're able to close that gap, the more aligned you are within this frequency. Okay, so how do we do that, Richard Rudd? I understand conceptually, okay, yes, diplomacy, however you freaking say it, is a good thing. I want to cultivate that so that I can start to move in a way that's more open-hearted and bring things back to baseline. But how do I do that? What's in my toolkit? What does the diplomat use? And he notes here that the sharpest tool in the kit is honesty. Honesty carries an extraordinary power, and it is one of the keys to diplomacy. Another key is timing. Okay, so he just gave us kind of a twofold thing here. Honesty. All diplomats use honesty. True diplomats, I should say, use honesty. And timing. You have to be honest in the right way at the right moment, is what he says. Because, you know, the truth can hurt, especially if it's in the heat of an argument, right? Let's just paint a situation here. Say you're in a very heated argument with your partner and things are building, and again, honesty is the best way to communicate and move through any sort of conflict and find resolution, to find balance. However, if you're in the heat of an argument and your partner is saying something, it's probably not the right time to be like, well, you want to know how I really feel? Da-da-da-da. That might actually, ironically, backfire, right? Even though you are being honest, there's still a charge of energy behind it. So, in my opinion, when I read this, I thought, okay, yes, the diplomat is honest, but it's also aware that the heat of the argument, of the conflict, needs to simmer down before calmly and peacefully communicating what it is that is on the individual's heart. So really, this energy of diplomacy wants peace above all. And the only reason it uses truth to communicate is to bring about more open-hearted peace. And it wants to communicate in a way that is calm and peaceful. It doesn't want to ignite more fuel to the fire, right? How many times have we been in an argument where we say the truth and we kind of know it's going to hit them in the right way? It's going to pat our own ego on the back. Diplomacy doesn't do this. Diplomacy's main goal is peace. And it moves and speaks in a way and a timing that upholds that. And he also notes here how the other tool of the diplomat is these people can physically feel into the other person's aura. These people are empathetic. And a while back, actually, I looked up the difference between empathy and sympathy, because they're so similar but so different. And the difference between empathy and sympathy is empathy, the etymology of the word empathy means to be within, whereas sympathy is to be next to. So when I sympathize with someone, say Jerry here just lost his dog and he's very sad. I'm right next there. I've never had a dog. I don't really understand what it's like to lose a dog, but I love Jerry and I want him to feel better, so I'm with Jerry. And I'm like, oh, it's okay, Jerry, what do you need? Can I get you ice cream? Do you want to go to the dog funeral together? Like, what can I do to help you, Jerry? That's sympathy. Whereas empathy would be if Jerry's right here, he just lost his dog. Whether I've had a dog or not, I can fully put myself in his shoes completely, play out a whole scenario through my head if I've never had a pet myself, and truly feel exactly what Jerry is feeling. And once again, empathy is on a sliding scale. The more you can do this, the more empathetic of a person you are. And so when I come to soothe Jerry, I soothe him in a way that's a little bit deeper and more profound than just sympathy would. And so the diplomat has this gift of empathy to feel into what the person is going through. That means the person that's projecting onto them, arguing with them, yelling at them, they're able to, in the heat of the argument, enter into that person's psyche, for lack of better words, and really understand where they're coming from, why they're doing what they're doing. And that compassion generates the diplomat to hold the tongue, to simmer down the situation and move in a way that's more peaceful and calm, because they truly feel for the other person and their point of view. So this is not necessarily easy, but it is simple, which I've said a few times within my videos. Lots of this stuff is simple, but not easy. So essentially, you're emotionally mature. And the way Richard Rudd describes emotional maturity is, he says, emotional maturity means that your awareness operates even during the most profound emotional states, even in the heat of an argument, even if someone's yelling at you or throwing things, even in deep grief. Your awareness is still here. You're still able to observe, oh, that's grief, oh, that's anger, right? I think I mentioned this in a past video. You can still see the candle flickering. You are not the candle flickering. You're watching the candle flicker. And I've actually thought a lot about what emotional maturity is to me. And kind of what I have concluded is emotional maturity is communication, which actually lines up nicely with this. Being honest and timely with your communication is a hallmark of emotional maturity, which breeds diplomacy. So some contemplations for you who is watching. Am I an empath? How can I start to develop empathy? How can I start to actually put myself in another person's shoes? And the nice thing about this is you don't have to wait for conflict to ensue in order to start practicing empathy. Right here, right now, even if you have 5 minutes, you can close your eyes and imagine what it's like to be your mother or whatever, what it's like to be your best friend, what it's like to be the guy who just made your coffee, what it's like to be the person who's working on the house over there. The way you develop empathy is simply taking time out of your own individualized point of consciousness and placing yourself into the seat of another. And empathy can be used in more than just conflict, right? It can be used in day to day. There doesn't need to be conflict in order to be empathetic. And I have found that in proactively practicing empathy, which I personally do through writing letters, for some reason that helps me feel a lot of empathy for the people in my life. When I proactively practice it, right, when it's just like, oh, I have 5 free minutes to write a letter, whatever, I find that when conflict does ensue, I'm a lot more likely to enter the gift of diplomacy than if I were to have not practiced. And actually, it's in the moments in my life where I have maybe been slacking on proactively practicing empathy that I find I'm more reactive when conflict inevitably ensues. So yes, food for thought. And if you would like to use the little trick I do for developing empathy, basically one of these, I just call it a game, but I'll sit down and I'll write a love letter to someone in my life, whether I'm related to them, they're my friend, or sometimes it's like super random. I kid you not. Sometimes it's literally like I wrote one to my acupuncturist once. But yes, just really writing a letter to them and feeling into why it is that I'm thankful for them, and then also brainstorming what it's like to be them, and maybe even envisioning what they'll feel like when they receive this letter from me. Sometimes I never even give the letter out, by the way. It's just a practice. He says, true diplomacy is an energetic gift operating through a person's aura. That means it can be sensed, it can be felt. Again, maybe not tangibly seen, It's not like you can look at a person and say, oh, they're diplomatic and they're not. But it can be felt. It leaves you feeling connected, warm, and fuzzy. Right? Because the true diplomat wants to commune, wants to bring balance and harmony everywhere they go, and they do. And people sense that, whether consciously or unconsciously. And they naturally, wherever they go, dissolve opposites, dissolve barriers, dissolve borders and boundaries. Right? There's no more battle of the sexes. And he says that this is exactly what the experience of falling in love is. This bleeding of barriers. So the diplomat essentially walks in a frequency of love, which is something really beautiful to think about. They bring love with them wherever they go because they are embodying love. They're not dichotomized within themselves or with others. They're like always mixing. He says here that this gift, the person who embodies this gift, is a participant in a deep alchemical process of gradually bringing peace to earth. That is quite the job, bringing peace to earth. So yes, as we each individually enter into this gift of diplomacy, of communicating honestly with the right timing, we start to bring about peace on earth. It's a butterfly effect. One true diplomat starts to carry love with them and spread that love around. And love is contagious. Like nibbles on everything around it. And then those people have a little love bite and they start to feel it. They start to build the energy of a true diplomat, start to communicate more honestly, openly, and timely within their own reality. They spread that. It just keeps spreading. So peace on earth starts with diplomacy. So these people who are embodied within this gift see the futility in defensiveness. They don't want to argue. Once again, their main aim is peace. Everything they say and do is for the purpose of peace. And seeing the futility in defensiveness means, we're all human, right? So of course there's going to come a day where even the person who is embodied in this frequency starts to feel someone come at them. And they feel that defensiveness arise within them, that want to bark back or say, no, I didn't do that, or to protect their ego. And once again, the difference between the person who's truly embodied within this gift, they sense that arise. It's not that it doesn't arise, right? It still arises, this urge to fight back or defend. The difference is this person has a heightened awareness so that as it arises, they have the choice to not act on it. They have the choice to hold their tongue. They have the choice to, oh, you know what? I feel a lot of energy right now. I'm actually going to go take a walk and we can return to this conversation later. So I think that's really important to emphasize. It's not that these people are just always jolly and unoffendable. It's that when the offense or the defense does arise within them, they have the awareness, the strength, and the power to sit still and hold their tongue. Wait for that energy to pass through them, and then choose to engage in a way that's more loving for the whole. They see the fire flaring. Instead of adding fuel, they say, I'm going to wait for this to go down a bit, and then I will engage. And I remember actually before I read this book, I was thinking about, I used to have a friend who would say, I'm unoffendable. And I always used to remember thinking, what does that mean? Like, how are you unoffendable, dude? What? And for the most part, he actually was. It was pretty hard to offend this guy. But on occasion, you could see his ego flare and him get defensive. Very occasional, though. He was actually pretty much unoffendable for the most part. And I remember always wondering, like, how he did it. And one day I asked him, and he mentioned the 4 Agreements, which is a cute little pocketbook. And there's a chapter in there that talks about to take nothing personally, right? Because everyone is simply just dumping and projecting their own trauma onto you and offloading onto you. And actually, it has nothing to do anything with you when someone is coming at you or offending you. And he told me he just really deeply resonated with that truth and has worked a lot on it. And remembers that when he feels that defense come up within him, that it's not meant to be taken personally. And so I started to practice this on the phone with my mother. When she would say whatever, I would do my best to hold the frequency of being unoffendable and remember not to take anything personally. So reading this chapter reminded me of that kind of experiment I would do on the phone with my mom. And something I invite you to do, for you who's watching this, is there's got to be someone out there who triggers you, whether it's your mother or like a friend, a neighbor, or whatever. And going into a conversation, especially a phone conversation, with heightened awareness of, okay, I might get triggered right now. I might feel the defense come up, but because before I enter this conversation, I'm reminding myself that this might happen, I now have a heightened awareness, therefore I have a greater degree of diplomacy already instilled within me. I'm going into this phone call like a warrior. So I remember I used to like get all amped and then call my mom on purpose and be like, okay, she's gonna try to offend me potentially, but I'm ready. And again, I think this is a proactive way to start to develop the gift of being unoffendable. It starts to develop this truth that truly defense is futile. It doesn't help anyone. It only adds to conflict. It only sediments everyone and everything into the shadow frequency. And so if you're feeling so empowered to try this out, think of someone who triggers you. Before you call them, really remind yourself what you're doing. I'm going into the fire, right? But I'm going into the fire with a heightened awareness that this is the perfect opportunity to practice patience, peace, and being a diplomat. And I only recommend this if it really speaks to you, because I don't want to get anyone into a pickle. And finally, his last statement to us is, we shall begin to see the dismantling of the many types of borders and barriers that keep people apart from each other. So as this gift emerges, so too will we all as a whole. That wraps up today's video, the gift of diplomacy within the 6th gene key. Stay tuned for tomorrow's video, which will be about the city of peace. Hey guys, thanks again for tuning in with me for this Gene Keys episode. I also just wanted to come on here and start promoting my one-to-one coaching that I offer to women and girls ages 16 to 35. If you've followed me on Instagram for a while, you might be a little bit familiar with my story. I was a model in New York City for 5 years, and in that time frame, I did quite some damage. I developed a really severe eating disorder, body dysmorphia, chronic anxiety. Oh my gosh, I couldn't even go out to dinner without thinking about how much calories, how much I'd have to overwork out in order to compensate for what I was eating. All of those issues led to quite a depression and turned into PCOS, and I also lost my menstrual cycle for over 5 years. All of this amalgamation of issues led me to soon realize that something needed to change. I went through much work. Many people helped me to get to where I am now. And I'm so thrilled to say I'm living such a more abundant life, and I don't feel zapped and drained and fear of judgment anymore like I used to. I would love to offer what I've learned through my own embodied experience, the meditative techniques that have gravitated toward me, and the own verified games that I've made up and curated to help you walk home to more of you and who you really are, so that all of these things can stop draining your energy. you know, all the constant comparison to others and to people on Instagram, all the over-analysis about working out and what you're eating or what you look like. All of these things are not what life's about, as cheesy as it sounds. And I would love to help you come into more unity with you if you struggle with any of these things and you're a woman or girl between the ages of 16 and 35. So feel free to reach out to me if one-on-one coaching sounds resonant. You can feel free to DM me through Instagram or contact me via email, both of which will be left below in the description box. So much love and aloha to you guys, and I'll see you all in the next video.